Hello, and welcome to The Bard's Truth, with your host, the Green Bard. This is the Direwolves of Winterfell, Volume 3, Part 4, The Hellbitch of the Trident and a Cat, where we continue to discuss Arya and Nymeria's story in A Feast for Crows and a Dance with Dragons. Arya's wolf dreams continue in this combined volume despite her being across the narrow sea in Braavos, far from Nymeria in the Riverlands. Arya's bond to Nymeria is strong indeed, even though Nymeria's name only comes up once directly in her thoughts. Given the physical separation, Nymeria can no longer provide any physical protection, but their bond may be helping Arya to maintain her personal identity as the Faceless try to reform her into no one. Nymeria still looms large in the story as well. In the A Feast for Crows Riverlands chapters, that is Arya's dreams, Brienne's story, and Jaime's story, statistically the word wolf is used 38 times, direwolf 12 times, wolves 33 times. Of these mentions, the following categorizations can be made. Young wolf, mention or description, 4 times. Arya, mention or description, 6 times. Nymeria, mention or description, 5 times. Other Stark direwolves, mentioned or described, 4 times. Northmen, mentioned or described as wolves, 9 times. Seeing a pack, 3 times. Secondhand mentions of a pack, 13 times. Dreams, 7 times. Starks as wolves / skinchangers, 3 times. Stark banner / sigil, 6 times. Heard howls, 2 times. Hour of the wolf, 1 time. Lone wolf dies, pack survives, 2 times. Wolfed as a verb, 3 times. As seen in Jaime and Brienne's chapters, the pack seems to be selectively attacking the enemies of House Stark, which makes sense if Nymeria is telepathically linked with Arya, who is very aware of the enemies to her house because, she recites her people to kill list nightly as a prayer, right before she goes into dreams with Nymeria telepathically connected to her. Could it be that Nymeria hears that prayer before the dreams even start? Suffice to say that this is also a good indication of Nymeria's intelligence. She can discern basic friend/foe info through the bond, possibly even to recognize sigils. The pack and the emotional/personal bond remain the most important concepts in their story going forward, both by the numbers and thematically. After not having a wolf dream in her first A Feast for Crows chapter, there are wolf dreams in every single one of Arya's following chapters, in A Feast for Crows, A Dance with Dragons, and The Winds of Winter. A Dance with Dragons, John 1. To start these final volumes, chronologically, not by publishing order, her brother's wolf dreams introduce more details about their own bond to Nymeria. We start with Ghost's perspective. Far off he could hear his packmates calling to him, like to like. They were hunting too. A wild rain lashed down upon his black brother as he tore at the flesh of an enormous goat, washing the blood from his side where the goat's long horn had raked him. In another place, his little sister lifted her head to sing to the moon. 100 small gray cousins broke off their hunt to sing with her. The hills were warmer where they were, and full of food. Many a night his sister's pack gorged on the flesh of sheep and cows and horses, the prey of men, and sometimes even on the flesh of man himself. Notice that Ghost's images of his sister and brothers seem to be much more descriptive than what we got from Summer in A Storm of Swords. Could Ghost be stronger in the magic/telepathic connection that forms this bond? I think yes. A Dance with Dragons, Bran 1. By contrast to Ghost, Bran needs to remind Summer of his real pack. No, the boy whispered. We have another pack. Lady's dead, and maybe Grey Wind too, but somewhere there's still Shaggydog, and Nymeria, and Ghost. Remember Ghost? Summer is beyond the wall and cannot sense the rest of the pack, so Summer's inability to sense his real pack may not be a clue about Summer's power, but rather a commentary on the magical barrier that is innate to the magic of the wall. Note that Ghost could not sense Summer either back in A Clash of Kings / A Storm of Swords when he was beyond the wall. We'll bookmark these concepts for later volumes. A Feast for Crows, Arya 1. In Arya's chapter at the beginning of this volume, the lone wolf theme comes up again as so many of her pack are reportedly dead. She muses that perhaps Ned had it backward. Might she be mistaken in adopting this attitude? I worry about this. I'll read this quote because of its spoiler nature. They are not my 7. They were my mother's gods, and they let the phrase murder her at the twins. She wondered whether she would find a god's wood in Braavos. with a weirwood at its heart. Daniel might know, but she could not ask him. Salty was from Salt Pans, and what would a girl from Salt Pans know about the old gods of the north? The old gods are dead, she told herself, with mother and father and Robb and Bran and Rickon, all dead. A long time ago she remembered her father saying that when the cold winds blow, the lone wolf dies but the pack survives. He had it all backwards. Arya, the lone wolf, still lived, but the wolves of the pack had been taken and slain and skinned. A Feast for Crows, Arya II. In Arya's next chapter, a lot happens to remind us of how deep Arya's true identity is tied to Nymeria. First, she thinks of Nymeria when she is questioned about the smell of special candles similar to weirwood paste and shade of the evening. These substances seem to conjure feelings of the most important things/memories to those who are affected. They also enhance magical abilities.
Winterfell, she might have said. I smell snow and smoke and pine needles. I smell the stables. I smell Hodor laughing and Jon and Robb battling in the yard, and Sansa singing about some stupid lady fair. I smell the crypts where the stone kings sit. I smell hot bread baking. I smell the gods' wood. I smell my wolf. I smell her fur, almost as if she were still beside me. I don't smell anything, she said, to see what he would say.
If not for the later wolf dreams, we might take that bit about Nymeria being beside her at face value, just as a metaphor. But knowing that later Arya manifests the ability to dream inside Nymeria an ocean away, I assume that this is actually meant to suggest that she is truly smelling Nymeria, with Nymeria's own nose, just as Ghost had heard with Nymeria's ears in the prior chapter. Later, when the priests ask her to shed her possessions, symbolically to shed her identity, she justifies it because she's a lone wolf. However, she can't discard Needle, which, like the wolf bond, binds her to her identity as a Stark, as a dire wolf, binds her to her pack, whether she knows they're out there or not. It's actually interesting that at this point, George R. Martin has not had Nymeria sense the dire wolves, like happens with Jon and Ghost. I wonder why this is.
In the black of night she rose again, donned to the clothes she'd worn from Westeros, and buckled on her sword belt. Needle hung from one hip, her dagger from the other. With her floppy hat on her head, her fingerless gloves tucked into her belt, and her silver fork in one hand, she went stealing up the steps. There is no place here for Arya of House Stark, she was thinking. Arya's place was Winterfell, only Winterfell was gone. When the snows fall and the white winds blow, the lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. She had no pack, though. They had killed her pack, Sir Ilyn and Sir Meryn and the Queen, and when she tried to make a new one, all of them ran off. Hot Pie and Gendry and Yoren and Lommy Greenhands, even Harwin, who had been her father's man. She shoved through the doors, out into the night.
As we know, she does not discard Needle. She hides it for safekeeping. And perhaps she also thinks she hides her bond to Nymeria. Au contraire. We next get a description of her first wolf dream in this volume, the dreams being another anchor to her true identity. These nightly reminders of who she is, and the bond that brings them, make it impossible for her to shed that identity. This wolf dream is especially fascinating as she has it while standing on her feet in front of a crowd of faceless men. It is highly likely that all the priests here heard her howling in her dream, so they know of her Warg bond, and likely they also know that it won't be broken. The whole concept of her shedding her identity could be a charade in Arya's case because they want to make use of her powers. This little scene would obviously be a nice little display for them. I don't recall from the text, but I wonder if they made sure she hadn't gotten much sleep before this event.
Arya heard much and more that night, but almost all of it was in the tongue of Braavos, and she hardly understood one word in 10. Still as stone, she told herself. The hardest part was struggling not to yawn. Before the night was done, her wits were wandering. Standing there with the flagon in her hands, she dreamed she was a wolf, running free through a moonlit forest with a great pack howling at her heels.
Finally, Nymeria comes up again when she is thinking about her true identity, and a second time in her choice to name the ship she sailed on in her Cat of the Canals backstory.
No one, she would answer, she who had been Arya of House Stark, Arya Underfoot, Arya Horseface. She had been Ari and Weasel too, and Squab and Salty, Nan the Cupbearer, a grey mouse, a sheep, the ghost of Harrenhal, but not for true, not in her heart of hearts. In there she was Arya of Winterfell, the daughter of Lord Eddard Stark and Lady Catelyn, who had once had brothers named Robb and Bran and Rickon, a sister named Sansa, a direwolf called Nymeria, a half-brother named Jon Snow. In there she was someone, but that was not the answer that he wanted.
Later.
Just so. Your father was oar-master on a galley. When your mother died, he took you off to sea with him. Then he died as well, and his captain had no use for you. So he put you off the ship in Braavos. And what was the name of the ship? Nymeria, she said at once.
That's right, she said Nymeria at once. The Cat of the Canal's identity features her mother's and her wolf's names. No one a charade indeed. She may tell herself that she is shedding her identity, but subconsciously it's an impossible task. A Feast for Crows, Cat of the Canals. The dreams continue once she has assumed the identity of Cat of the Canals. The next wolf dream is quite rich from a sensory perspective. She seems to be fully sharing in Nymeria's sense of smell especially. This is an indication of the bond deepening. We see a similar progression in Jon and Ghost later. Given that she says the dreams haunt her, I wonder how much she consciously realizes that her dreams are actually true experiences through Nymeria. Her other dream, nightmare really, is a heartbreaking obsession over not being able to save her mother. What will she think when she realizes that her mother actually has been resurrected, at least in part due to her own efforts inside Nymeria at the end of the last book? Might she be happy that her mother was brought back, or might she see that little of her mother is actually left, and if so, might she give her the gift?
When they reached the broad straight waterway that was the long canal, they turned south for the fish market. Cat sat with her legs crossed, fighting a yawn and trying to recall the details of her dream. I dreamed I was a wolf again. She could remember the smells best of all. Trees and earth, her pack brothers, the scents of horse and deer and man, each different from others, and the sharp, acrid tang of fear, always the same. Some nights the wolf dreams were so vivid that she could hear her brothers howling even as she woke, and once Bria had claimed that she was growling in her sleep as she thrashed beneath the covers. She thought that was some stupid lie till Talia said it too. I should not be dreaming wolf dreams, the girl told herself. I am a cat now, not a wolf. I am Cat of the Canals. The wolf dreams belong to Arya of House Stark. Try as she might, though, she could not rid herself of Arya. It made no difference whether she slept beneath the temple or in the little room beneath the eaves with Brusco's daughters. The wolf dreams still haunted her by night, and sometimes other dreams as well. The wolf dreams were the good ones. In the wolf dreams she was swift and strong, running down her prey with her pack at her heels. It was the other dream she hated, the one where she had 2 feet instead of 4. In that one she was always looking for her mother, stumbling through a wasted land of mud and blood and fire. It was always raining in that dream, and she could hear her mother screaming, but a monster with a dog's head would not let her go save her. In that dream she was always weeping, like a frightened little girl. Cats never weep, she told herself, no more than wolves do. It's just a stupid dream.
That last bit shows how important pack is to her identity. No matter how much she tries to delude herself otherwise, she needs her pack. She's Lord Eddar's daughter indeed. I expect it to be very satisfying for her to be reunited with her brothers and sister. The final dream of the chapter is different. She dreams she is a wolf in Braavos. However, it seems she is actually skin-changing a Braavosi cat in this dream. Something she had an idea that she should be doing earlier in the chapter, actually.
That night she dreamed she was a wolf again, but it was different from the other dreams. In this dream she had no pack. She prowled alone, bounding over rooftops and padding silently beside the banks of a canal, stalking shadows through the fog.
So now Arya has learned to skin change other beasts. Her power will continue to grow as we move further into the story. Here I must take an aside and mention that Cat of the Canal's fishmonger call of oysters, clams, and cockles is almost certainly an homage to the traditional Irish song Molly Malone, where the chorus ends with the line, "Crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh." This is, of course, where my own Reddit handle comes from, Alive Alive Zero. I've done a recording of this song with my own alternate lyrics in honor of Cat of the Canals, I mean. The entire track follows this presentation. Enjoy.
In gallows free city, where the fog it hangs thickly, I first set my eyes on Cat of the Canals. She wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. She was a fishmonger, and sure 'twas no wonder, for she worked harbour purple for a whole brusco. They wheeled their wheelbarrows through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Cat died as she blundered for Arya Stark's honor. The singer wore black, but he is nevermore. Now her ghost wheels her marrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh, alive, alive, oh, crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive, oh.
Thanks to all the terrific artists who let me use their work on this
YouTube.
Thanks to my daughter for her terrific voiceover work, and to my wife for the terrific art of this series.
Crying cockles and mussels, alive, alive.
If you enjoy this content, you can also consider supporting us on Patreon.